This is the story of Crazy Aaron. Crazy Aaron began his life as a computer programmer. Well, he began his career as a computer programmer. So Aaron would sit down at his computer and he would write code. And sometimes it took a while for the code to compile or process. So he had time on his hands, and Aaron liked to fidget with things. You just sit there on your desk and you twirl a pencil, or you pop this thing, or you twirl a fidget spinner. And Aaron went on to say, I trained to be a software engineer, majored in computer science. I did that for a number of years. Early internet, working in Silicon Valley, designing internet enabled operating systems, graphics engineering, and such. And as you can imagine, you're always up and downloading files and waiting for things to compile when you're writing code. So I'd often find my hands were free while I was waiting. And so I ended up accumulating different toys to fiddle with, really. One of the things I started playing with and became obsessed with was that old egg of putty. This is from a large language model, creating an egg of putty. It's not too bad. And if you recognize this, you probably kind of sort of recognize the thing that Aaron was playing with, because Aaron had all of this code to write. And Aaron wasn't the only one writing code. He worked in a cubicle farm. He worked in an office where there were a lot of people writing code. There were a lot of people sitting at their desks using their computers with free hands. So around the year 1998, Aaron decided he was going to make his own version of putty. He got the ingredients from somewhere and he went home to his kitchen, and he said that he realized there was lots of decisions made by chemical engineers and the like over the last 50 years. And mostly those decisions would have been concerned with reducing cost, not with making it more beautiful, more amazing, or more incredible to feel. But with my being less cost oriented, because I was entertaining myself, I went down the path of making putties that did things no one had ever seen before. And we have to remember that there's a difference between making something efficient and making something the best version that it should be, or the optimal version that it should be. So Aaron made putty, and what happened was he would make his own putty, and his coworkers would stop by his desk and they would take it, or he would walk away and then it would be gone. So he decided that rather than have coworkers come and take his putty, he would sell putty in the office. And it turned out he was making a decent amount of money selling putty. Then his company had layoffs. But this was kind of good for Aaron's putty project, because his coworkers found new jobs in new offices and took his putty with them. And so Aaron had his putty in different cubicle farms in different offices. And so he started selling his putty to more offices and he would ship it out. And the putty business was kind of growing. So around the year 2002, Aaron got another opportunity. He went to a convention center and showed off his putty. He had branded putty. So people could stop by his booth and they could ask Aaron, could you make something that said Mr. Mike's Menagerie? Note the misspelling. Come on, large language models. Or you could have something like the Buffalo Tin of Putty. Or you could even have something like Acme Putty. And this is what Aaron was doing. Rather than making his own putties for coworkers, he was making branded products that companies could give away to suppliers or customers or sales representatives or some other little tchotchke. Eventually, we'll go to a career day here at the school, and there will be lots of little giveaways that you can get, keychains and lanyards and other things of the sort. And those are the kinds of things, that was the kind of market that Aaron was serving. And it was really good. He was making a ton of putty, selling it to a ton of different places. And it was a good little business. But then, in 2008, something else happened. There was a housing crash. There was a stock market crash. There were laws passed that said no more swag. The businesses that had been buying things from Aaron couldn't legally do it anymore. That meant there was no more Mr. Mike's Menagerie putties that he could give out. But One day, Aaron got a very lucky phone call. The person on the line said, Aaron, you shouldn't be selling putties as swag for companies to give away at conferences or to their sales representatives. This is a toy. Aaron, you should be in a toy store. Your putties should be next to puzzles and games and things of that sort. But here's the deal. Time is running out. Aaron, we have to hurry. There's a major toy show in New York City. And if you can get your putty ready for that, there's going to be aisles and aisles and booths, and there you can start to sell your putty. Aaron said, at our first toy fair, we were not brand new. We had been in business for 12 years. We knew the formula was the best. We had all these colors and effects that had been tested with thousands of customers. He knew how to make the tin. Aaron knew how to make the putties. And this would be the founding story. This would be the new direction for what maybe you know, maybe you knew right away, maybe you recognize it now, maybe you just sort of get it, of Crazy Aaron's Thinking Putty. This was the start of his business. This is how everything got going. So, we are going to brainstorm ourselves. These are the rules of brainstorming from a company called IDEO. IDEO is a major design firm in the California area. The founders of IDEO were the ones who developed the first Apple mouse. They've been responsible for a lot of different projects. And these are what they say. When we're brainstorming, we want to defer judgment. Some things will be bad ideas, but we don't need to assess that right away. And some things will be bad ideas, which lead to good ideas. So we want to defer judgment. We want to come up with wild ideas. We want to come up with things that are interesting or different or unexpected. We want to build on the ideas of others. We want to think about, yes, we could do that, or we want to think of something that is a continuation. We want to think of what is the next station on this train line. We do want to stay focused on the topic. We don't need to talk about lunch or sports or other things. This is a little hard to keep in mind with the idea of having wild ideas and building on the ideas of others, but we want to stay generally pointed in the same direction. We want to have one conversation at a time, and being visual is a great way to encourage good brainstorming. We also want to go for quantity. Sometimes it takes a while. We have to get through the obvious answers before we can come up with something creative. So consider Aaron's story. He made something that existed different. Putty was something that was already around. It was something that you could buy in the store, but nobody had thought to come up with really good putty. So we're going to take 2 minutes and come up with a list of products and product improvements. So this would be something like making your shoes better, making other clothes better, making your book bag better or different or enhanced in a way that maybe like our tennis balls, maybe there's a better version of that. So you can keep the video running. I'm going to pause for 2 minutes. Go ahead. As an individual, please come up with as many product improvements as you can. Go. As we get down to the last 20 seconds or so, continue to write down ideas. It's hard. It can be tough to continue to think and push and challenge yourself. But I think you might have found that as you were going along, there were some interesting ideas that weren't the first things you came up with, but were before maybe you got stuck. So that's 2 minutes. Now we are going to go ahead and pause this video and share some product ideas, some product extensions that you may have come up with. So go ahead and pause the video. Let's try to have 3 to 5 people share products that are improved. Now we're going to trade sheets with someone else in class. So if someone wrote as a product improvement Crocs with soft uppers, you can add that these Crocs are paintable or customizable. So what we want to, this is the brainstorming part, this is the brainstorming skill of extending on, saying yes and. We're taking someone's idea and we're taking it up a notch. We're going from level 10 to level 11. So once again, you can leave the video running and I'll go ahead and start a stopwatch. As our 2 minutes wraps up, this one was probably a little different because this one takes a little more empathy. We need to sort of understand where that original person was coming from. Like, why did they want to improve products in such a way? Why is this the direction they were thinking about? One big skill in life is the ability to have empathy, the ability to understand someone else, to put yourself in their shoes, to have the appreciation for the parts of life that they see is important. So once again, we're going to pause the video and we're going to take a moment and share what you've come up with, share the extensions. And I hope that when I come back to school, that some of these are going to be really wild and crazy and different and odd and make me go, wow, that's something no one has ever thought of before. So go ahead and take a moment and let's share some things in class. Okay, we're going to have one more chunk of this idea of thinking about Aaron's silly putty. And think about Aaron's original market. He originally made his putty for adults, but actually it took off. It found its legs for children. And we can think of different ways where maybe there's something that is made for a certain group of people. But really, the prime market, the people who will most appreciate that product, isn't who we're first thinking about. So one example of this is a product that didn't quite have the original market was Instagram. And so back in the early days of Instagram, the Instagram engineers were noticing that some accounts were posting things and deleting things right away. And originally this was maybe people were being bullied online, the engineers thought. Maybe people were doing things that they shouldn't have been doing on the platform. They were violating the terms and service of the platform. So the Instagram engineers were trying to figure out, what was going on with these accounts that would have something posted and then immediately taken down. And so they started looking into it, and sometimes people were doing nefarious things. Sometimes they were doing things that were inappropriate. But some people were actually using Instagram as a storefront. And what they would do is they would post a picture of the thing that they wanted to sell, and then they would delete it once the thing had been sold. So think of like a Facebook Marketplace, or think of like a clothing business. And like once you sell the dresses or the shirts or the hats that you have in stock, you have to take those pictures down because they're not in stock anymore. So this insight, this new market of people that Instagram didn't think about, they weren't designing for this group of people. They weren't necessarily on their radar as far as product improvements go. They showed that there was actually a different market for Instagram, and that led to the creation of Instagram stores. So when you see products on Instagram now, know that came from this group of people who were using the product in a different and unexpected way. So one more time, we're going to think about products that are currently being used by one group that maybe they could also be used by another group. And once again, remember, this is a brainstorming exercise. We're stretching, we're building empathy, we're trying to think actively and creatively about the world around us. So go ahead, and we're going to take 2 more minutes to come up with a different market for some of the products on your sheet, or maybe on the other person's sheet. For those of you that are stuck, one example of this is the athleisure industry. I'm not there, but I could almost guarantee some of you are wearing joggers today. Joggers 10 years ago was not a thing. Fitness, wearing nice clothes to the gym 20 years ago was not a thing. And so that is one area where somebody decided to make nicer gym clothes. And so the original market for those was people who were for exercising, but those have found a new market where people can wear those when they're running errands, or when they're out and about, or in your seat when they're at school. Another one might be the Apple Watch. Sorry, I was briefly interrupted. We're recording this, or I'm recording this before the school year even starts, and I had to talk with somebody. So that's the beauty of the asynchronous technology we have. And once again, sharing is caring. Let's go ahead, and you can pause the video here and go ahead and share our new market ideas that we had, our products that exist in one market that maybe they could exist in another market.